Doug Wiley with Police Magazine. I'm here with Nick Greco, friend and colleague. We're here at ILETA 2019 in St. Louis, Missouri. I know that you've taught a couple of classes today, and we've talked in the past about a number of issues related to mental health. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when we have officers responding to calls involving someone who is in a mental health crisis, emotionally disturbed persons, people maybe who are intoxicated or on some sort of drugs or what have you, we've found over the years that crisis intervention training, CIT, it needs to evolve. You know, so the problems are sometimes getting more difficult in some places, and in order for police to properly respond, we need to evolve training like that. So how do you revamp a CIT program? What does that look like? What goes into it?
A lot of times a revamp of a CIT program is dependent upon your regulating body. So whatever whether it's post or you have a law enforcement training and standards board, it all depends on what state you're in. So, and then also if you're looking for CALIA certification and such. Most of the CIT programs will be based off the Memphis model. And so if you're just starting a CIT program or you have one in existence but you had some kind of complaints about it that's not covering everything, you want to look at what's occurring, where are you deficient at. So there's many components to a CIT program. So when you're looking at that, you're going to talk about the major mental disorders. You're going to look at co-occurring disorders such as individuals with depression and substance abuse. You're going to look at childhood issues. You're going to look at geriatric issues, talk about psychopharmacology, as well as legal issues and things of that nature. You're also going to look at other features such as personality disorders. You're going to cover post-traumatic stress disorder. So what you're looking at in terms of a CIT program is making sure that you have all the elements necessary. Now, if your regulatory board kind of dictates what you need to put in, well, most of your work is done. You just have to be able to formulate that, and you're going to have to get a set of experts, people who know what they're talking about, to set that program up and work with you to set a program up. So you want to have somebody who's teaching psychopharmacology who has that experience, whether it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist who has extensive knowledge. If you have somebody teaching on Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, you have to have somebody who is well versed in that area. So you just can't have any officer trained. Now, it's very good if you can have police officers who have master's degrees and such like that, but you make sure that you have both LE and the behavioral sciences buy-in on a revamp of a program. And when you're revamping that program, you want to make sure that you're meeting the needs of the community. So a lot of times if you have the opportunity, you want to make a local flavor for it. So you're not just pulling something off the shelf. You want to also provide the resources and information about what officers can use when they're dealing with somebody with depression or somebody with gerontological issues like dementia. Okay, so is there safe return? Is there other forms of GPS trackers? What do we do for wandering? What do we have a command center set up? So all the local resources, that makes a CIT program much more robust.
I'm going to role play here for you for just a second. I'm the chief of police. You came and pitched me, I need to revamp the CIT program. I'm saying, hearing you say you're going to have all these medical doctors and all these experts and all these different subject matter experts in very niche areas coming in and training my officers. You know what I hear? That sounds really expensive. On the flip side of that coin, not role playing anymore. It's more expensive to not. You know, the failure to train is one of the biggest liabilities in law enforcement. So, and you have an increase in number of these calls, an increase in the number of people who are in crisis. You have people with PTSD who were over in the sandbox, maybe are homeless and destitute and mentally challenged, emotionally challenged. It's more expensive to not do this training, correct?
Yeah, because if you have officers responding to somebody with mental illness and that person pulls out a screwdriver or pulls out a cell phone and they shoot that person when they needed to talk to them, or that person, for whatever reason, things escalated when they could have de-escalated, how much is that lawsuit going to cost?
Right.
How much PR damage is that going to do to the department? So CIT training varies in its cost depending on the state you're in, the program you're doing, but all the programs are protective for the police department and also protective for the community. So looking at CIT program, this is an investment in your officers because your officers are dealing with this on a daily basis. Whether you like it or not, if you're not proactive as a chief to realize that, it's going to be coming down from your local state licensing board, regulatory board. You're going to be mandated to do it. A lot of agencies are now doing it. They're scrambling to get CIT done because they want to have that training done for their officers. They want to have that promoted to the public, and they want to give. It's also increasing public trust.
Yeah. Okay. More role playing.
Yeah.
Here it comes. I'm an officer.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing you say I'm going to have all these experts, these subject matter experts, medical doctors, and all of these folks, and they're going to come in here and train me on crisis intervention. I'm thinking, and you know what I'm hearing? I didn't sign up to be a psychologist. I signed up to be a cop. And why am I being trained in this again? Right?
Yeah.
You're getting that.
You
from
do
some
get
officers.
that.
I think in younger officers less so, but in some of the senior officers where you've got an established set of guidelines and an established way of doing business. This kind of sounds like hocus pocus, touchy feely, but it's real important police training because it can keep you and the subject safe.
And one of the things you do get a few officers working more as CIT is becoming more commonplace. We're seeing the last 2-3 years, we're seeing more officers, less of them being voluntold, actually volunteering to be there. You still get a few people that say, well, we don't want you to be a psychologist. We're not training you to be a psychiatrist. It's 40-hour training. This is a crash course. This is something that and that's where it's very important when you're revamping a CIT program as well. We don't want pure academics coming in. We want people who have both behavioral services training, like myself. So my background is in psychology, but I also have been working with law enforcement for many years. So I have that perfect blend, and that's what you want. You have to be able to talk to law enforcement and be on that same level, because we're not making a lot of jargon. We don't want really hard words to throw them off. We're not teaching them like these to be psychologists, and it's true. We don't want them. We want them to be able to recognize signs and symptoms to help them be a better officer. So even when I teach psychopharmacology, I tell them, well, one of the things everyone asks, like, why do they have to know this? Well, it's the same reason you field strip your gun and you know how to look for malfunctions. If I have a drug that I just rattle off to you, you know it's an antidepressant or you'll know it's an antipsychotic, that gives you a clue into the person that you're dealing with. Do they suffer from schizophrenia? Do they suffer from depression? What am I working with? So that's the reason we want to get them to have that knowledge and awareness. And a lot of officers, by the end of the week, sometimes by the second day, they're converts. They're like, oh yeah, I can see where this is coming from. And that's where like my trainers and when we do CIT, we're actually working with the officers. We're giving them good examples. We're trying to take real world examples and apply it. And that's really where you have to take a lot of this training. You can't just make it off a book and expect them to really learn it. You have to take things and know the setting you're in. One of the agencies I work with back home, we did ride-alongs purposely, so we got to see the community a little bit more. Not only some of us live in that community, but that ride-along helps us understand the mindset of the police officers that we're working with.
Like you, I am a civilian law enforcement trainer. I appreciate your training because, like you, we've been in the law enforcement universe for long enough that we are conversant with the language spoken. And I appreciate all of the training you do, not just here at ILETA, but back in your home state and across the United States to help our officers be successful out there on the street.
Thank you.
Doug Wiley, Police Magazine.